Skinny fat guys will always have love handles, especially if you're screwed over with wider hips. And on top of that, if you have a ring of fat around your lower midsection, that never fully disappears no matter what you do. You've probably already accepted this about yourself. You'll probably realize that you're never going to get rid of it. And I did that as well. And the funny thing is that we're both wrong. So I'm going to break down exactly what's going on and what you can do to get rid of your love handles for good. So back in the day, and I mean, I'm speaking like I'm 70 or something. I'm not, I'm actually 22, but back in the day, I was in the exact same position that you are right now. My whole upper body was skinny, as you can see on screen right now, but around that lower midsection, I had this glaringly obvious ring of fat that made me look just completely disproportionate. So I kept trying to lose weight, aiming to get rid of my love handles for good. But then I ran into the worst case scenario, which is when I realized I just had a wide hip structure. So I thought I was cursed. I'd do Russian twists, side bends, anything that might target that area and burn the fat away. However, there's two problems with that. So first of all, those exercises train your obliques. They don't train your love handles. So you're essentially just strengthening a muscle that has nothing to do with the look that you're trying to get rid of. And then second of all is that you cannot spot reduce fat. What I mean by this is that fat distribution is genetic. So your body decides where it stores fat and where it doesn't. And you have zero control over that and that order as well. So I was doing exercises that weren't addressing the problem, targeting fat that I couldn't target in an area that I couldn't control, essentially. And every guy I speak to who has love handles and is struggling with them is doing pretty much the same version of the same thing. So here's the distinction that I don't really see a lot of people clearing up and making. There are two separate things that are happening when you look at yourself in the mirror and you have love handles. So one is like I alluded to earlier, and that's your wider hip structure, your wide hips, the wider pelvis that you have. And this is genetic, right? You can't change this. No amount of diet or training is going to change your bone structure. Essentially, you're just screwed. And then second of all is the fat covering that structure. And however, you can actually change this and you can specifically lose a lot of fat to get rid of this look. So if you're not sure if you should cut right now, then there's a free bulk or cut calculator down below. And I just want to get into how most guys conflate these two things and then feel hopeless when the first one doesn't actually change. I want you to keep in mind that genetically screwed doesn't mean you're actually screwed. So let's be honest, we'll talk about the elephant in the room. You have fat that collects around your lower midsection and you've got a wide hip structure. Now, that's a recipe for disaster, and you look in the mirror, and to be honest with you, you are screwed, right? But there are a lot of things that you can do about that, and that's what I'm going to get into in the rest of this video. So first off, I want you to think about bodybuilding, because bodybuilding is all about illusions. And there's a reason why the best physiques in the world invest an enormous amount of time and effort into building specific muscle groups, and at the same time put a lot of effort into their posing routine and how they show off these specific muscles. So I want you to take a look at these two physiques on screen. So the first guy, again, I'm going to completely butcher this guy. So, I mean, he's obviously not watching, right? But his name's Destin Cake. That's just a terrible pronunciation. But he has a wide hip structure, but he still looks incredible. And then there's one of my favorite YouTube channels who you should check out. He doesn't really upload anymore, which is a shame. But his name is Vitruvian Physique, or Igor, I'm pretty sure his name is. He's the same. He's got a wide hip structure, yet he looks really good. And then there's even my own journey. I've got wide hips. I store a lot of fat around my lower midsection. But now in photos, I don't have this problem. You probably look at my physique and you probably want to be where I'm at right now. And that's because I've built my physique, I've learned to pose, and I've got lean enough to where I'm not screwed over by my hips and love handles anymore. And I don't really think about them on a day-to-day basis. So you need to understand that the wider your shoulders get, the bigger your muscles get, the narrower your waist, narrower, yeah, does that make sense? The narrower your waist is going to appear in the mirror and in photos as well. So you want to think about the wider your lats flare out from the front, your midsection is going to come in almost like a V-tape. The more developed your chest is, the more it's going to draw the eye above your waist. And then the thicker your arms are, the more proportional your whole body is going to look. So like I said, bodybuilding is all about illusions. And as you can start to see, it genuinely is all about illusions. So your waist isn't going to get smaller, but your hips are going to appear narrower. So the rest of you gets bigger. And in contrast, it creates a smaller version of your waist. So just see what I mean by you can be genetically screwed, but you're not actually screwed, and you can actually build a really great physique despite having this flaw, right? And that's what I want to get into as well, is that your genetics might not be the best, but you can still build a pretty good damn physique if you work hard and you know what to focus on. So the love handles aren't going to disappear, but they just essentially become irrelevant, because you might have one weakness, but where you're so strong in all other areas, it just dwarfs that weakness, and to the point where it's not a weakness anymore. So we can talk about this in theory, but what should you actually do in practice? So there are two things you can do, and neither work without one or the other, if that makes sense. Does that make sense what I was trying to say there? So first of all, you want to get lean enough so that the fat covering your hip structure reduces. And the love handles are going to be the last thing to go on men, which I know is really annoying. I have a lot of clients where we've lost sort of 5, 7, 9 kilos, getting towards that 10 kilo mark, and they've still got love handles. It's frustrating, but it's just the harsh reality. If you want to think about it where like a lot of your fat is going to store centrally, because otherwise, imagine if you just stored all of your fat in your right calf. Nature's evolved to store your fat centrally, I'm assuming anyway, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to walk properly, and then you would just get eaten by a lion. So your fat needs to store centrally, so you've got balance, you can actually move properly. This is just a rant for another day. This is also complete bro science, so don't listen to this part of the video. Everything else makes sense, but don't listen to this specific part of the video. So, and they're also stubborn, I think, because they've got to protect key organs. Anyway, that's a rant, ignore that. But essentially, yeah, everything's going to store centrally. Love handles are going to be the last thing to go. So getting lean is going to meaningfully reduce them. And you just need to stay patient to get through this process. Then second of all, again, which I alluded to earlier, is that you need to build the muscle to create the illusion of that small waist, and therefore get rid of your love handles for good. So you should be following a balanced routine anyway, and you shouldn't really be skipping legs because they give you that X taper. And again, if you're skipping this, or you don't really have a training plan in place, and you probably need someone accountable so you don't skip these body parts, then there's a link to work with me down below, one-on-one coaching. I'll tell you exactly what you need to do and hold you accountable to actually do it, so then you don't skip legs like I did for a whole year and my legs just completely shrunk. But again, that's a rant for another day. Maybe I need someone holding me accountable. But the main muscles that you want to try and build up are your lats, shoulders, chest, arms, and unfortunately for your leg day skippers, even like myself, you want to build your quads as well, because like I said, we're after that X frame, we're after that X taper. So then if you think about it, if this part of your body's big, this part of your body's big, the wide hips are naturally going to look smaller in proportion to the rest of your body. And the combination of those two things, so getting lean and then building muscle, is how you're going to go from thinking you're cursed to actually looking the way you want. So that's how you're going to escape the skinny fat trap and actually build that aesthetic body where you don't even think of love handles anymore at all. So that's how you do it. And again, if you're not really too sure whether you should start focusing on building muscle first or cutting down first, then there's a free bulk or cut calculator in the link in the description below. Again, if you want to work with me, then there's a link to one-to-one coaching with me in the description below as well. So now you know what's actually causing your love handles. You might want to know how to build muscle efficiently in order to build enough muscle as quick as possible and therefore get rid of that love handle look that you just hate when you look in the mirror. So if you want to know how to build muscle properly, effectively, and save yourself from wasting years just guessing like I did, I was just going around in circles, not really doing anything. If you want that to be your reality, then you should watch this video next because I'm going to talk about training and exactly what you can do to maximize it in the shortest amount of time possible.